Hello and sunny welcome to the Masterclass Maximizing Value in the Cloud. My name is Philipp von Schmieding. I'm your technical moderator today. So if you have any questions on the usage of the tool, please tell me so in the question and answer section. If you have questions regarding the subject, then please do so too. I will administer those questions after the webinar to our two presenters from today, Roman Bruch and Jonas Niesen, who will introduce themselves. And the first presenter from today is Jonas Niesen. Hello, Jonas.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot, Philip, and thanks a lot for joining us today. Thanks a lot for making time available in, I'm sure, what are your busy schedules. And welcome to this webinar where we will talk about how you can maximize your value in the cloud and with Microsoft Azure specifically. And that's why I'm super delighted to be joined today by Roman. Roman, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jonas. And as well, many thanks from my side for joining today's webinar. My name is Roman Bruch. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, working within the German partner ecosystem, which means we support German partners, especially in the area of SAP and Azure. And this will be my topic today to speak and to introduce you to SAP on Azure. Thank you.
Very good. Looking forward to that, Roman. And my name is Jonas. I worked for TSystems in our cloud practice, and my team and I are responsible for what we call cloud adoption services. So really helping organizations and mainly enterprises to adopt cloud platforms and cloud ecosystems such as Azure. And I will kick it off today by discussing and talking a bit about our cloud offering and specifically what we call Cloud Migration Framework, which is a framework how we help our customers to adopt cloud and get the most out of cloud. And then we will briefly touch and get into a use case where Microsoft and TSystems have brought their strength together for our customer Aetra. So this is a great example, I thought, how we work together, the customer, Microsoft and TSystems, to really leverage the benefits of Azure. And then Roman will take over and talk about, well, this is really the deep dive of the session, talk about how customers can accelerate their SAP transformation by adopting Microsoft Azure. So then we will talk about briefly again about our partnership and why we think the partnership between Microsoft and TSystems is really special and how we think our customers can benefit from there. And then we close with questions and answers. So as Philip mentioned, if you have any questions at any time, put them in the chat window and we will leave sufficient time toward the end to answer them. So let's kick it off. And I truly believe that technology will continue to become the most important differentiator for any organization in any industry. And that means organizations really need to accelerate their digital transformation. And for most enterprises, adopting cloud platforms such as Azure is really the fastest way to do exactly that. And when I speak to customers, most of them, by the way, agree. But what I see also in the market is that all organizations are at different stages of their cloud adoption journey. So some of these organizations are really at the very beginning. Maybe they are still thinking about and defining their cloud strategy. Other customers might already have started experimenting with Microsoft Azure, so that some of their developers and architects and engineers might have a test landing zone in Azure to play around. Maybe there are already a couple of non-production workloads migrated into Azure, maybe even specific use cases, right? And other organizations are already all in. By the way, also TSystems customer who already have closed their last on-prem data center or are shortly before closing their last on-prem data center. They are really all in moving their applications into the cloud, for example, into Microsoft Azure. And these customers then often still do not use the full benefit for cloud. So even though they have migrated all of their workloads and all of their applications in the cloud, what we see often is that the vast majority of their workloads is still VM based. So they sometimes use Azure or other cloud providers just as another data center, rather than fully using the advantages of these large innovative ecosystems. And how we can get closer to using some of these advantages, we will discuss throughout the next hour or so. And then quite naturally, what we see as well is all of these customers have different priorities. This is quite obvious. So they are at different stages of their cloud journey. They have different backgrounds. They are in different industries and business. So quite naturally, they have different challenges and priorities. But what we see as well is that most of their objectives can be categorized in these 4 areas, which you see here on the screen. And this is operational efficiency, operational excellence, agility, and innovation. And operational efficiency is really mainly about bottom line and reducing IT spend. And that can be quite easily achieved by adopting cloud, for example, by using the increased automation capabilities that we have in the cloud. So we can reduce operational costs by leveraging some of the platform as a services provided by the likes of Microsoft Azure. That can include removing technical debt, which is sitting there for years and years in the on-prem data centers, which nobody dared to touch. But as part of the cloud migration, we will look into these applications and workloads, and will understand, do we still need them? Can we replace them? Can we retire them straight away? And by the way, when we look into our customers' environment, usually 5 to 10% of the workloads can be retired straight away. And that means operational efficiency from the get-go. And then lastly, there are other possibilities within the cloud, and they reach from still remaining in fairly traditional services, but best sizing some of your compute and some of your VMs up to the point where we really modernize your applications. Then operational excellence is all about architecting for resilience on Azure. So really using the services and the breadth of services we have at our disposal in an ecosystem such as Microsoft Azure to ensure that we increase the quality of our IT. And that means less production plants standing still, less factories standing still, less web shops or whatever you use your IT for, less disruption in general for the business, and thereby in the end, a better customer experience for your customers. So these areas, both operational efficiency and operational excellence, are more focused on the bottom line of the P&L really for organizations. But then, especially what we see with more mature organizations, they start to focusing more on the agility and innovation piece. And this is really more focusing, what can we do with the top line by digitalizing our business and leveraging cloud to do exactly that. And increasing agility could, for example, mean that I focus on building out CI/CD, so I can get releases out quicker, get releases out there a couple of times a month, maybe a couple of times a week, maybe even a couple of times a day, and thereby being able to much quicker react to business requirements, react to customer feedback, and react to market changes in competition, which is so important in this fast-moving world these days, right? So really, in a nutshell, agility means moving your entire organization more into that agile, more into that DevOps mindset. And then lastly, organizations adopt cloud, and in my view, have to adopt cloud in order to increase innovation, because what cloud does so well, and what, for example, Azure does so well, is allow organizations and enterprises to start experimenting, which is such a powerful tool. So you can literally tell your developers, your engineers, even your application owners to start small experiments by using, again, the breadth of services that are available in the Microsoft Azure environment. And a lot of these services are really fully managed by Microsoft, which makes it so easy to use them. Plus, literally all of them are on a pay-as-you-go model, so there's no risk to experimenting anymore. You can, once this experiment fails, you can just decommission the service straight away. But if the experiment is successful, you can then invest more into it, and in the best case, this will become new products, this will become new business models, which really make you stand out from your competition. So in order to support our customers and help our customers with these objectives, TSystems have completed a couple of crucial steps. So we already have years of experience to help organizations adopt cloud, but beginning of this year, we have really taken it to the next step by announcing our cloud first strategy. And what that really means for our customers is, whilst our customers still benefit from the breadth of the portfolio that TSystems can offer in the market, we really lead with public cloud first. And you can see that in a couple of areas. So firstly, we commit to invest even more into our own skills and expertise. And we do that very well together, again, with Microsoft, where we have joint education programs rolled out globally throughout TSystems and Deutsche Telekom, where we want as many of our colleagues to really be experts in the Microsoft Azure portfolio as well. And we constantly encourage our employees to get more and more certifications, so we really can prove this skill and this expertise also in the market. Secondly, we continue and increase our invest into our partnerships. And again, taking the example of Microsoft, we have renewed our global partnership agreement last year, not only in TSystems level, but really on Deutsche Telekom level. It's such an important strategic initiative for Deutsche Telekom and TSystems that we said we really want to make that bigger. We need a new partnership agreement so we can ensure that our customers get the most out of the strength of both Deutsche Telekom, TSystems, and Microsoft. And then lastly, cloud first and leading with cloud for us also means that we invest in our portfolio and into our proven methodologies. And one of them, as I already introduced in the agenda, I would like to present in a bit more detail in the next couple of minutes. So with the cloud migration framework, we have really brought together all of our experience and all of our knowledge into one framework to help our customers adopt Azure and adopt cloud in general. And we always start with what you see here in the middle with the cloud strategy, which is really the foundation, and we need to ensure that this is a solid foundation for any cloud transformation journey for any organization in any industry. So some organizations already have a very well-defined cloud strategy. If we start working with these customers, it's just very crucial for us to really understand what customers are trying and what enterprises are trying to achieve. Other organizations we find do not have a very well-defined cloud strategy. And that for us also means that, for example, a cloud strategy is not aligned with the IT or the business strategy. Again, such an important case. In our point of view, the cloud strategy needs to be discussed on board level. For every organization, that should be such a strategic initiative that it's not sufficient to only discuss your cloud strategy within, for example, an IT organization. It needs to be out there for the entire organization. Once we have fully understood our customer's cloud strategy, this allows us to then move into the first phase, which we call cloud assessment and planning. And what we do here from an organizational perspective is really to understand the cloud maturity of our customers. So often that means bringing different areas of the organization together, bringing together IT, bringing together the application owners with the infrastructure teams, bringing the business on board, bringing the finance teams in there as well. Plus, this is so crucial executive sponsorship, which I just mentioned, and really understanding where the organization is today in terms of their cloud maturity versus the ambition which we set out in the cloud strategy. And then from a technical perspective, what we do is really carry out highly automated discoveries for the scope, for the IT scope that is, well, in scope for the cloud migration modernization. So here we automatically scan the infrastructure and applications, and also speak to the application owners to really understand what's out there, what are potential blockers for a cloud transformation or cloud migration, and then for every single application, what is the best migration path for these workloads to the cloud, to Microsoft Azure. And this, by the way, also means that we can, at this stage already, help organizations to build a fairly accurate cloud business case. So from there, once we have understood the cloud strategy, so the ambition level, and we have understood where the cloud maturity is within the organization, we understand the technical scope fully, then we really know where the organization wants to go, where we are today, and from there we can build out a very structured program. And in the next phase, which we call Cloud Mobilize and Readiness, again, we focus on the organizational aspects, organizational and process aspects, and the technical aspects alike. So within the organizational sphere, we focus on building out a cloud adoption roadmap. And going back to my introduction, where I said every organization is different, has different priorities, and is different stages of their cloud transformation journey, this can really mean different things. So some of the organizations initially want to focus or need to focus on really enabling their organization, and they focus a lot on training and enabling and defining the new roles that are required when we adopt cloud. Other organizations we help with building out a cloud center of excellence as again, organizational nucleus to start transforming the organization and drive some of this technical change alike. Other organizations want to continue to focus a bit on the cloud business case. So with them, we build out cloud value frameworks, which really allow to measure the progress of the cloud transformation journey. So a couple of areas, and all of these are important, but like the order when we do what really differs, and obviously the more we go into detail of some of these aspects that and measures that I just mentioned can look very different from organization to organization. And then to create this technology and technical readiness during this phase, we help organizations to really build the foundation on Azure. So we build out a highly secure enterprise-grade landing zone on Azure. We have a lot of automation built from our previous experience, so we can really ramp these out and deploy these very, very quickly to a stage where these landing zones are then ready to accept workloads. And this allows us to then go to the third stage, which we call cloud migration modernization. And this is really where we help organizations, for example, in the migration piece, to build out highly automated and efficient cloud migration factories, which are able to migrate workloads at pace and at scale. Or if that's the focus of the organization, we bring in our application expertise and help our customers to modernize some of their applications in the form of replatforming or maybe even re-architecting to use some of these cloud native services on Azure. And all of that is surrounded by our cloud governance and cloud operations offerings. So in the cloud governance piece, we ensure that organizations continuously stay secure and compliant in their specific industry. In the cloud operations area, we can either help our customers to operate some of these applications and workloads on the cloud. So we have offerings like managed cloud services, which do exactly that. Or we help our customers to improve their own operations and define and refine their target operations model for the cloud. And again, this goes more in the direction of building out DevOps capabilities and mindsets. And then lastly, all of that is underpinned by what we describe as continuous modernization and optimization. And this is such important concept to understand. I mean, it's depicted here by these constant circles, right? But a cloud transformation journey really does not have a defined endpoint. You need to constantly modernize and optimize and get into this mode of continuous optimization, because one of the reasons why you adopt Microsoft Azure is to tap into the innovation power of Microsoft. And they bring out and refine and improve their services constantly, daily, weekly. And some of these services might really help you to drive down costs, to increase your agility, to innovate in your specific industry, because Microsoft has now this very strong industry focus as well. So you really don't want to miss out on these opportunities to achieve your goals with Microsoft, and this is why you need this continuous modernization and optimization in there. Now, this whole framework is built on a modular, or with a modular approach, and this is what you can see here on a high level on this slide. And some of these terms you will recognize because I have talked about them, right? But really, we are able to cover the whole end-to-end story together with our partner Microsoft, from cloud strategy to the target operations model. But then again, going back to what I said earlier, customers are at different stages. So maybe your organization is already in the cloud and you're mainly looking into modernization, or you already started your cloud adoption journey, but you really need to focus now on your organizational change as well. So you need support by building out a cloud center of excellence and leveraging some of the experience that both Microsoft and TSystems can bring on the table here. So we are able to be very selective, and most customer engagements I'm involved in really start with one of these honeycombs, one of these modules, and from there we decide together what is the next priority, what should come next. And then what we also see, and this is so great about this modular approach as well in my mind, is that sometimes organizations and enterprises start working with Microsoft directly. So Microsoft may already have supported customers to define their cloud strategy. Maybe Microsoft has helped the customer with a cloud discovery with, for example, a tool and company called Modular, which they have acquired a couple of years ago. So all of this information, including the cloud business case, is already available then. And we step in after that stage to then focus on building out the cloud landing zone, use all these details so the customer doesn't have to repeat anything of that, and then immediately can jump into the application migration. Now, the second advantage of this cloud migration framework from TSystems I would like to highlight here is how closely interlinked it is with Microsoft's best practices as well. So on this slide here, you can see something called the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. And what that really is all the best practices and all the experience that Microsoft has collected over the last couple of years across their huge customer base are built into these best practices of Microsoft. So when Microsoft talk to their customers about cloud adoption framework is for sure something they will mention and also follow when they start working with a customer and advocate as a best practice. And what we really do with our cloud migration framework is combine the two and go on top of that and ensure that we work hand in hand here for our customers. And that means on the one hand side, when we work together for our joint customers, we really speak the same language. And that is so crucial to be efficient with these very complex, sometimes very complex cloud adoption initiatives. And secondly, customers really benefit from both. On the one hand side, the experience, best practices that Microsoft have built into their cloud adoption framework, combined with TSystems best practices that you can find in our cloud migration framework. And one example where, in my mind, this worked really, really great is Aetra, a company from Brazil. So they are really a OEM with a lot of pride in their 4 decades of experience, but at the same time, very focused on innovation because they are one of the leading providers of high-tech products and services for the automotive industry. And iATRA really approached us with the following challenge. Their goal was to mainly focus on their core businesses and very quickly discover that operating a data center, operating VMs, patching operating systems is really not adding any differentiation. So they were very clear and set on moving their SAP and surrounding applications to the cloud and approached us with the question to define a cloud strategy, to also define and have them to decide on a cloud partner, whilst guaranteeing these economical benefits. They wanted, of course, to ensure that their core systems like SAP is often the crown jewels of any organization, right? So they needed to ensure high availability. They wanted to use and leverage the global scale of hyperscalers, and they obviously also needed to ensure that their high security standards are adhered to. So we help them to build a business case to migrate their SAP system to Azure. And by collaborating very, very closely with the customer and with Microsoft, we were really able to complete the whole migration within 1 month, which is very, very quick. And this really requires, I mean, often these projects are not that quick, and it really requires very close collaboration and a lot of flexibility from both the customer and the providers. And immediately after this migration, the customer was really able to see a couple of benefits. First of all, there was a 60% reduction in their operating cost. And on top of that, there was also 30% increase in their performance. And what I would like to highlight here, and I think this is really important, cost savings are not built into Azure, right? And I have this discussion a lot with my customers. You really need to architect and implement cost savings. But in the example for iATRA, we did a couple of very, very simple things. So we focus obviously on best sizing, so measuring the performance, selecting the right compute services on Azure. We focused on leveraging the different pricing models which are available on Azure. So we used reserved instances for the production workloads. We used pay-as-you-go model for the development and quality assurance systems, and then built in some basic automation where we said, based on a customer schedule, we start and stop these development and QA systems automatically. And this was already sufficient to gain this huge advantage of 60% reduction, right? And from there, this is really just the starting point. Now we work with iATRA to focus on building out some business-focused use cases. So we're focusing on building out these use cases around IoT and digital factory. So whilst we have, I think, achieved the minimum, which is ensuring operational efficiency and operational excellence, now it's really moving up there, going into the agile and innovation space, and really focus on business benefits and innovation. Excellent. And with that, I would like to hand over to Roman, and I'm very much looking forward to your insights, Roman.
Thank you, Jonas. And many thanks for sharing this excellent customer reference. And as well, many thanks for, let's say, this great introduction to cloud transformation frameworks. And I only can highlight the importance of those cloud transformation frameworks and governance concepts, and especially the constant circle, the constant improvement is key to cloud adoption. And that's why I'm very happy to present today more technical details, because I'm a cloud solution architect and we tend to fall in love with technology. And that's why it's very important to always have colleagues on your side who have, let's say, the alignment between business goals and IT goals in their focus, and always ensure that strategy is aligned with IT. And now I will present some, let's say, details about SAP workloads and why SAP customers move their SAP workloads to Azure. First of all, there are two main drivers why SAP workloads are being migrated to Azure or to public clouds. On the left-hand side, obviously, like Jonas already said as well, many customers, many partners have a cloud-first strategy. And Gartner made a prediction that by 2025, 80% of enterprises will shut down their traditional data centers. One, let's say, aspect as well here is that SAP announced that the classic SAP ECC system, so the traditional SAP ERP system running on, let's say, classic databases, will be end of support in 2027, which means the successor is S/4HANA, so the next generation SAP ERP system. And currently, 73% of SAP's customers are planning to migrate or to deploy S/4HANA. And of those 73%, 72% are planning to deploy S/4HANA to a cloud provider. And why? So from my background, working as a SAP HANA consultant, we have to know that SAP HANA is a in-memory database. And SAP HANA is the only supported database for S/4HANA, which means when migrating to S/4HANA, customers need to provide HANA databases which have to have multiple of terabytes of RAM because it's an in-memory database. Which means you don't only have to have it for your productive system. You have to have a quality assurance system. You have to have a development system, maybe a sandbox system. And likely your S/4HANA system is not the only SAP system in your landscape. That's why, of course, a lot of customers are, let's say, considering the flexibility of cloud deployments for, let's say, having the options to deploy HANA on virtual machines instead of having to procure it on premises and, let's say, build the infrastructure, including backups and faster storage and so on premises. Let's say these are the two main drivers for moving SAP workloads to Azure. Let's start with some highlights why most of the SAP customers are choosing Azure as preferred cloud for running SAP workloads. First of all, global availability. So currently 60 plus Azure regions are available globally, which means customers are able to deploy their SAP systems depending on their subsidiaries, depending on, let's say, local legal requirements like GDPR. And next to global availability, security, and especially the 1 billion investment of Microsoft into cybersecurity on a yearly basis is one very important reason as well in these days to move SAP workloads to Azure. And of course, compliance, which means Azure provides 92 compliance offerings. It can be that this could be certifications, but as well, this would be, let's say, implementations of laws like GDPR. And all those compliance offerings are available globally. So this would be, let's say, three highlights why customers are choosing Azure. Specifically, why do customers choose to run the SAP landscape on Azure? We have four, let's say, important topics to highlight. First of all, Azure is a proven platform built for SAP. We have security and compliance in place, as mentioned earlier, and we provide innovation, which means immediate insights and innovation. And we have a very strong partnership with SAP as well as like with TSystems. Let's dive into the details. Why is Azure a proven cloud platform built for SAP? If you are talking, Jonas, as well, if you are talking to your customers, you will learn that each hour of downtime of SAP systems will cost a customer millions of dollars. That's why, of course, like already mentioned, SAP systems are the crown jewels of, let's say, the IT landscape of a customer, and there are very high, let's say, requirements for those mission-critical SAP applications. That's why SAP, of course, introduced as well certification processes, which is very important to understand, that if you are running your workloads on any cloud, as well as on Azure, your infrastructure has to fulfill those SAP, let's say, certification requirements, which I will cover later on. But just, let's say, for setting the stage and let's say some basics, if we speak about SAP workloads on Azure, we are referring to infrastructure as a service, which means we are using virtual machines, we are using virtual networks, software-defined infrastructure, but the application management services on top are provided by partners like TSystems, for example, which means running your SAP workloads on Azure in terms of SAP ERP, BW on HANA means in practice infrastructure as service. You will run it on virtual machines and let's say software-defined data centers. Just for completeness, there are as well some SAP applications running on Azure, which are provided as software as a service. But focus of today, of course, is infrastructure. And I will, let's say, give you some ideas what this means in practice. Like I already mentioned before, when moving SAP workloads to Azure, customers typically start with shift and lift, which means the application doesn't get changed. So there might be no SAP upgrade. The database stays the same. And first of all, let's say SAP workloads are migrated to Azure, let's say without touching the application as a first step. There might be other options where, for example, carve-outs take place or divestitures or mergers, where like a greenfield project will take place, which means you might do a migration, a upgrade to HANA, or even a transformation to S/4HANA in one step. And sooner or later, when customers are following the SAP roadmap, you will require to run your SAP workloads on HANA, which means you have to have virtual machines which provide you up to 12 terabyte in memory RAM. Those virtual machines are certified by SAP, so highly extensive and let's say challenging performance tests. And we have a very large, let's say, portfolio of certified virtual machines for HANA as well as for NetWeaver, which means you could start, let's say, with smaller boxes for development systems. You could start, let's say, with, let's say, medium-sized systems. And here, from my background as, let's say, HANA or SAP consultant, you always had to do a sizing. And now imagine you do a sizing and you do an estimate it will be 6 terabyte. And it might be that it will be 8 terabyte in half a year. If you would have to run the system on premises, you would have to do a migration from one, let's say, physical appliance to another. Having the flexibility of Azure means you could just, yes, you have a downtime, but by doing a restart, you would be able, let's say, to resize your HANA box by pressing a couple of buttons. But nevertheless, having the wrong sizing in a classical on-premises environment where you would have, let's say, to install the physical boxes in your data center. This is really challenging compared to having virtual machines and be able to switch the size quite flexible. As well, worth mentioning that for, let's say, very large customer deployments, like 24 terabytes in RAM, which would be 48 terabyte data space because of compression, we provide so-called HANA large instances, which are, for example, running on Intel Optane persistent memory machines. And currently, Microsoft is the only public cloud provider who provides Intel Optane certified HANA boxes. So very important, certified NetWeaver systems, certified HANA environments in a broad portfolio of sizings to really meet the requirements of our customers. And as well, we are working on integrating SAP workloads into, let's say, the Azure portal, which means our additional operational services, for example, like Azure Monitor, where we have Azure Monitor for SAP HANA, which means a tight and very deep integration into our infrastructure for monitoring, including log monitoring. As well, we have options for automation. So enterprise scale landing zones, very important topic, especially when talking about cloud adoption. So we provide predefined templates, like best practice templates for automation and, let's say, understanding how Microsoft defines a best practice reference architecture for SAP workloads as well. Next, we have high availability or Azure backup for SAP HANA. So all SAP HANA experts in this call will know that there's something called HANA backend interface, which is a backup interface, and our Azure backup service is certified for SAP HANA using the backend interface. And on top, like I mentioned, we have Azure Blueprint, enterprise scale landing zones, reference architectures to really give guidance to our customers and predefined infrastructure source code, so to say, how to deploy Azure in a SAP on Azure in a very performing and secure way. Next, to the infrastructure, which brings flexibility, which brings cost savings when following the constant circle and doing continuous improvement and continuous, let's say, iterations. We speak about innovation, very important, because honestly, from a business process perspective, from an end user perspective, running your SAP system on any data center or any cloud, it doesn't change your SAP system from an end user perspective. From an IT perspective, you will have flexibility, you will have dynamic resizing, you will have automation, all this nice new integration with backup and monitoring, but still from an end user perspective, from a, let's say, support of core business processes perspective, your SAP application won't change. And now innovation comes into place, and this is something which we see as a huge differentiator at Microsoft to really unlock the value of your SAP data, you could say the gold mine at your company for different use cases. So you can see there's a lot of integration options we have in place. We could probably spend a full day of presenting integration options between SAP and Microsoft or Azure services. And you could do a step-by-step approach. Let's see if I'm getting here. You could start, for example, with directly consuming your SAP BW data with Power BI. So just attaching a new front end to your BW system. You could use Power BI to combine your BW data with other different data sources, which typically are SAP sources, and Power BI is extremely strong in combining multiple data sources in a very end-user friendly way. As we all know, machine learning, artificial intelligence is only happening in public cloud. All the new features, Spark, Python, all those nice libraries like Pandas, they are all happening in public cloud environments. And if customers really would like to unlock the value of their SAP data by combining business processes with artificial intelligence or with machine learning, we have the services in place to do so. But if you are already working with, let's say, machine learning projects or artificial intelligence projects, you will always learn that the data foundation is key. So no machine learning project will be successful without a valid data foundation. And that's why we are highly focusing on providing as well a data warehousing solution like Azure Synapse Analytics for, let's say, data extraction from SAP, supporting SAP interfaces, as well as a, let's say, scalable data lake storage, which is supported by multiple services like machine learning, Databricks, or Azure Synapse Analytics. So this would be the first step, or step-by-step, by using either Power BI directly on your SAP system, or you would, let's say, enrich your data warehousing with SAP data sources, or would apply machine learning on your SAP data. So purely focus on analytics. As well, if we do, let's say, surveys between or at our customers or partners, and we ask them what is the, let's say, most important scenario for integration of SAP data or applications or systems with Microsoft. A very important topic here is integration with Microsoft Teams. As we all daily work on Microsoft Teams, and we have close integration or tight integration with Microsoft Teams, including certain security aspects. We call it principal propagation, where you are able to use Teams with your SAP user basically, or let's say execute SAP actions in your backend with your SAP authorization, as well like Power Platform, like low code, no code environment to, let's say, extend your SAP workloads with those tools. And of course, IoT, HoloLens, GitHub, like infinite possibilities to really extend or combine your SAP workloads on Azure with Microsoft services. And like I mentioned, certain SaaS, software as a service offerings by SAP are running on Azure as well. So very important and key for our customers, and one important reason why Azure is the preferred cloud platform for SAP workloads is the option to combine SAP with different workloads. And just to highlight it again, we do a lot of investment and integration work to integrate SAP on Azure with the Power Platform, which could be either Power BI, like mentioned, which is part of the Power Platform, but it could be as well Power Platform, let's say low code or no code applications, where let's say citizen developers are able to create their own application based on their SAP expertise or their business process knowledge, and they are able, let's say, to expose or to unlock the value of SAP for a broader audience with a low code or no code environment. So this would be, let's say, the innovation part, which is key for our customers to extend the SAP workloads on Azure with different Microsoft or Azure services. And now something very important comes into play as well, which is the partnership between Microsoft and SAP, as well the partnership between the triangle, including TSystems. And this is like an ex-SAP, so I really like this picture because this is the SAP landscape at Microsoft. So over 100,000 users at Microsoft are using SAP on Azure, very important, on a daily basis. So the core processes or many core processes of Microsoft are running on SAP on Azure, be it the core finance processes, finance and controlling, global trade services, supply chain, and even we are users of, let's say, the SaaS applications, which are not running or not hosted by Microsoft IT, but nevertheless, when let's say switching from SAP to Microsoft, you don't have to get used to a new environment because most of the systems stay the same basically. And I'm still booking my travels with Concurs, hopefully soon. So that's why very important that Microsoft runs extremely large SAP workloads on Azure. We are of course doing co-innovation, testing our, let's say, own champagne quite early. And as well, very important to highlight is that next to running, okay, here we go. Just a second. Sorry, we have some delay, apologizes. Next to, let's say, running SAP workloads or Microsoft running SAP workloads on Azure, SAP as well runs SAP workloads on Azure. So Microsoft, I always mix it up, SAP IT is a reference customer for Microsoft. And currently it should be like 40 systems running on Azure, and some migrations are planned for this year. And we have a long-lasting partnership of 25+ years, including, let's say, co-development workspaces, for example, in Waldorf, where many of our colleagues are located and closely collaborating with SAP in different areas. And of course, we have an aligned global investment in the ecosystem. So, for example, the extended Teams integration of SAP, which was recently announced, for example, for Cloud for Customer. So again, very important, the partnership between Microsoft and SAP, and especially the fact that both companies are running mission-critical SAP workloads on Azure. So this would be, let's say, the technical deep dive about why customers are choosing Azure to run their SAP workloads. And now we switch to, let's say, why do customers choose Microsoft and T-Systems, and how Microsoft and T-Systems support your cloud journey. Like I already mentioned, when migrating your SAP workloads to Azure, we speak about infrastructure. So typically you would need managed services on top. You would need somebody like Jonas, who's guiding you for transformation, cloud adoption, and strategy. You would have to have somebody who understands the cloud, let's say, PaaS services, so platform as a services offerings, how to combine them with SAP workloads. You have to have industry knowledge. You have to have knowledge how to run certain applications or doing rehosting, refactoring, and having the bigger picture in mind. And that's why T-Systems brings 12 years of cloud transformation journeys for multinational customers. We have a joint best-of-breed partner ecosystem. And as I already mentioned, Microsoft has 60 geographic regions to provide Azure, let's say, services and Microsoft services on a global scale. And as well, we have a certain history in hybrid solutions, which is very important as well, that we provide, of course, our options for our customers to run their workloads as well in a hybrid fashion. So again, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present SAP workloads and in Azure today. And I would like to hand over to Jonas again.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Roman. This was really insightful. Brilliant stuff. Good. Then let's wrap it up before we open for Q&A. So, like, we believe you can really benefit from the partnership between Microsoft and T-Systems and our joint expertise due to a couple of reasons. So, firstly, we really pick you up where you are today on your customer journey, and all of that is based on our structured frameworks. So the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework, the T-Systems, the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework, the T-Systems Migration Framework, which are closely aligned, well structured, and built based on our long expertise in our specialized fields over the last couple of many years. And then lastly, we focus on helping you to modernize and transform your application landscape. We really have this strong, and I hope this came through, it definitely came through in Roman's part, we have the strong focus in helping organizations really to innovate and really focus on the top line and modernize your organization, focusing and helping you with this digital transformation. And whilst we have a strong focus on the IT, we also recognize the importance of the organizational and cultural change. And this needs to be tightly coupled, and also, again, is built into these frameworks, into these offerings that we as partners bring to the table. And with that, I really would like to open the Q&A and hand it back to the operator and check whether there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jonas. As a matter of fact, I have some questions. I would try to give them, divide them a little bit between you two, as far as I can order them. The first question is, could you explain more on the specific role of Microsoft and the one of T-Systems in an Azure migration?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and very good question indeed. So maybe I answer that from two perspectives. One is the contractual perspective, and then the other one would be in the service perspective, really. So from a contractual perspective, really, we give our customers choice. So especially large organizations often prefer to have separate contracts with Microsoft and with T-Systems. So they have an enterprise agreement or CSP with Microsoft, and because they really have a strong procurement department, they have the negotiation power behind it, and want to directly control their frameworks and their contracts with both partners, then other organizations, especially like smaller organizations, but also organizations which prefer simplicity and want to reduce their supplier and partner relationships, they sometimes just have a single contractual relationship with TSystems and are building on our partner contract with Microsoft in the background, where we are able to to pass on and sell through all of these Microsoft and Azure services and all the consumption as well. And then from a service perspective, it's really a broad mix. I mean, Microsoft will always obviously remain responsible for the Azure services. This is very clear. And TSystems has built a broad range of offerings on top of Microsoft Azure, reaching from consulting over migration up to operations models, as I pointed out earlier. And sometimes TSystems provides like these services 100%. So Microsoft only is responsible for the platform. TSystems provides all the services on top. But sometimes we also co-deliver to our customers. So within Microsoft, there's an organization called Microsoft Consulting Services. And well, just yesterday, really, we provided an RFP and an offer to our customer where we want to join up our teams. So we have experts from Microsoft Consulting Services, experts from TSystems working alongside each other for our customers. So all of these models are really possible to again ensure that that our customers benefit from this partnership.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. If there was anything left out in the question, please remind us, and then Jonas could come back to that. But now here's a question that could be perfect for Roman. TSystems have completed the SAP migration with Aethra in 1 month. Is that the general timeline for an SAP migration to Azure?
It's quite a challenging timeline. So if somebody would have asked me to become the project lead and do a migration in 1 month, I would get nervous, honestly. So it's really a fantastic result to have a migration in place in 1 month. So like always, those migration and transformation times might differ depending on, let's say, the number of systems a customer might have in place, or let's say the level of cloud maturity or cloud adoption. But let's say migrating a SAP system in a single month, I would call it Champions League, and maybe not the typical time. I would typically start with, let's say, 3 months, and those transformation projects could end up maybe even over years if you have a double-digit number of SAP systems to migrate.
Okay. Now there's a question. I think that is it refers also to the first question I already read. TSystems has a direct support from Microsoft, or is it just a regular support ticket?
We like when it comes, probably this question is really referred to what kind of support do we get from Microsoft in terms of outages in the platforms and the likes. And this is indeed as part of our partnership agreement. And if customers consume these services via a TSystems via a TSystems contract, then we manage these as third-party tickets as well on behalf of our customers. If the customer has a direct relationship, a direct CSP with Microsoft for the Azure consumption, then this lies within the responsibility of the customer and is based on these standard contractual terms as agreed with Microsoft. If it's procured through TSystems, we take care of it together with Microsoft in the background.
Or in some cases, customers even open support tickets at SAP because, let's say, on a certain, let's say, level, it seems to be the application which is, let's say, affected, and then we have a close collaboration between Microsoft and SAP engineering and support to work on the ticket and to resolve the issue.
Okay, sounds good to me. I hope that answered the question too. And here's one, as you have mentioned that this transformation is more from IT perspective than end users. How did TSystems benefit from it?
How TSystems benefit from? I'm not sure whether I understand the question. Sorry, from what did TSystems benefit?
I'm not entirely sure either. If the person who asked this question could give more specifics, then we can come back to that. But for now, I would change to the next question. Do you have tips we should consider if we want to move our SAP systems to the cloud? Perhaps that's something for you, Roman.
Again, like I already said in the beginning, cloud adoption frameworks, this continuous circle of improvement, let's say, is key. You have to have an alignment between your corporate strategy, your IT strategy, and as well, you have, let's say, to take into consideration that your IT staff as well plays an important role here. And that's why cloud adoption frameworks and as well enterprise scale landing zones are key to the success. As well, let's say having partners not only considering a pure shift and lift of SAP systems, but really having a holistic overview about, let's say, the SAP strategy and transformation roadmap to have really a strategy for cloud adoption, which is aligned with the SAP strategy and the SAP roadmaps. And again, continuous improvement is key from my perspective.
Next question, and I'm looking at the clock. TSystems provide only consultancy, or they also do the end-to-end migration?
Yep, absolutely both. So we have a consulting offering where our consultants and our Microsoft and Azure experts and architects and consultants can help our customers to become better to implement these services, but also we help our customers to do the whole migration. So we build out cloud migration factory teams. We help customers to modernize and redevelop some of their applications. So we have the whole breadth of services available for our customers.
Okay. Yeah, I think that rounds it up. I don't see any more new questions. And if you have further questions, I'm pretty sure that both would like to answer them also afterwards. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like as we had an appointment. For me, it's goodbye and have a nice day.
Hey, thanks a lot, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Roman or myself. Feel free to link into both of us. Feel free to send us an email. If we couldn't answer your question, you see both our email addresses here on the screen. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for spending an hour with us, and take care.
Thank you as well.